Coming up on Access Tech Live.
Everything from Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, the NHL Stanley Cup Final in ASL, and we're in Halifax for International Albinism Awareness Day.
This is Access Tech Live with Stephen Scott and Mark Aflalo. The latest in tech and accessibility every week. Follow us now and get involved at Access Tech Live.
Welcome to a very special edition of Access Tech Live. I am actually here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Stephen Scott in Glasgow, Scotland, where he is normally. Stephen, I kind of wish you were here, but with all the hubbub going on here, I think you'd get a little bit too comfortable with all the fun going on here around me.
Oh, great. Well, you know, I love fun. You know me. I love people. I love being around them. So this, of course, would be the place I would love to be. But I know you're there for a very special reason this week.
I am. We're here. Actually, AMI is here now with Dave Brown was on this morning live from this exact studio. And Jennie Bovard will be taking the stage a little bit later on in the evening live on YouTube. We're here to recognize International Albinism Awareness Day. Lots of cool things going on. And AMI is on the road. So why not do a show on the road when we're here? So this is what we're doing, and I'm excited to do it. But don't worry. We have a lot of exciting things coming up this week, Stephen. Not only International Albinism Awareness Day, but interesting. It's a first in the NHL, the Stanley Cup Final, which is on now. We've got Game 3 going on just tonight. First time they're broadcasting the game in ASL, which is very, very cool. We're going to be welcoming a gentleman by the name of Bryce Christensen, who's going to be joining us to talk about how that came to be and why they're doing it, and of course, Stephen, the significance of it.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and so wonderful to hear that this is happening. It's a huge event, and more people can enjoy it. But that's not the only reason we're here this week, of course, because we cannot avoid the elephant in the room, the massive elephant in the room. We're not going to ignore Apple's huge Worldwide Developer Conference this week, are we? Everything that happened this week, we're going to dive into that. Also known, of course, as WWDC. We're going to be talking about that, which I imagine may feature a little bit in this week's Access Tech News headlines, which Mark has.
Now, Access Tech Live headlines.
Yeah, Stephen, I think a little bit is a little bit of an understatement, because that's all we're talking about in the news today, because there's so much to talk about, starting like Apple did with Vision OS. Now, their virtual reality headset, or spatial computer as they call it, was announced to be coming to pretty much every other country in the world. They're starting with some Asian countries, and they'll make its way to Canada in July. And on the feature list, Stephen, they've got a couple new things, such as a wrist gesture, which lets you pull up the time and battery percentage on the device. You can quickly access the control center, and of course, for a $5,000 price point, we'll all be getting a lot of this stuff. They've got an immersive mode, so immersive media features like machine learning to turn old photos into spatial photos. That's going to be a pretty cool one. Plus new tools on the cameras, and cameras actually coming out from Canon and Blackmagic to help create immersive content, which is super exciting as well. Plus, of course, you can remote control your Mac, and that gets more immersive as well, Stephen. Very, very cool stuff coming on Vision OS, and we'll actually get to experience it in Canada for once. On the iPhone, iOS 18 includes some new visual enhancements. You'll be able to rearrange your home screen finally in a whole new way. Icons are no longer going to be locked to specific places on the grid. New themes will allow you to change the colors of widgets, and you can actually get more interactive and completely resizable with those as well. Apple has redesigned the control center to fully be customized across multiple pages now if you want to spread out, things like that. You could do things like customizing the camera and flashlight icons on your home screen. Those were originally just locked into what Apple decided to give you. Across the operating system, you can now hide apps and even lock apps to your biometrics, including Face ID and Fingerprint ID, if you want to lock something away from someone else's prying eyes. In Messages, you can schedule messages to send later, just like you can in email. There's support for rich text messaging, they're calling RCS. You can style texts with underlines, bolds, even make things larger and more impactful as well. Here's Apple's Ronak Shah.
We're also giving you more ways to express your tone with text formatting. Bold, italicize, underline, or strike through any text. And when formatting's not enough, we're introducing a new way to visually amplify your messages with text effects. Whether you want to emphasize some major news, bring your emoji to life, or you're just blown away by a stunning photo, you can express yourself in all new ways with text effects.
Also coming to iOS is a game mode that now minimizes background activity, which prioritizes gaming. Photos have been redesigned, and now in Mail, there's an automatic categorization process which allows you to help see what you want to see. For example, personal messages, work messages, maybe even spam if you want to, which is pretty cool. Let's talk about mail sorting now.
This year, we're giving you a new way to stay in control and manage incoming email with on-device categorization that organizes your messages and helps you stay up to date across all of your accounts. The primary category enables you to focus on what matters most: emails from people you know and time-sensitive messages. The rest of your email will be organized into new categories, like transactions for receipts and order confirmations, updates for newsletters and social media notices, and promotions for marketing and sales messages.
So let's talk about AirPods for a second, but they've got some minor updates. They're actually kind of interesting, including voice isolation to help reduce noisy environments. Let's say you're out at a construction site or a concert. The person on the other end will be able to hear you better. Spatial audio is coming to games, and it'll be available as an option for developers to actually use, and the ability to respond just using head movements.
This year, we're making it even easier to interact with Siri for a seamless, hands-free experience. For those instances when you may not want to speak out loud in response to Siri, like on the bus to work, or in those places that are a little too crowded, we've created the ability to simply nod your head yes, or gently shake your head no to interact.
watchOS gets a new training mode to evaluate your trends over time. So if you're training for something, you can actually keep track of what's going on. Now let's talk about iPadOS for a second, because it gets everything you get with the iPhone, plus some new features to include remote control, which can help you with family tech support. That's going to be a big one in my household, I'll tell you that. But the biggest update came with the Calculator app. Believe it or not, I swear this is not a joke.
I want to talk about a feat that some may have concluded must be a mathematical impossibility. That's right, we're bringing Calculator to iPad.
After that canned laughter, they took out the Apple Pencil and showed a new mode called Math Notes. It allows you to write down equations in your own natural handwriting, and it'll actually answer the equation in real time, again, in what looks like your actual handwriting. When you update the equations, it'll actually update in real time. It supports variables and even more complex mathematical equations, and can even graph the results for you dynamically as you change it. The new version of macOS is coming, called macOS Sequoia. It brings automatic window snapping, something we've seen on the Windows side of things for a while, built-in backgrounds for apps that use a webcam. A new password app will actually help you manage your passwords and will be available to other operating systems as well. But iPhone mirroring was the biggest hit here. Here's Apple's Craig Federighi.
I can fully interact with it, all wirelessly. I can see my custom wallpaper. My icons are right where they belong, and I can use my phone normally, like swiping through pages of my home screen. And I can open any of my iPhone apps, like the Phil's Coffee app for a bit of extra energy for my favorite local coffee shop. I can use my Mac trackpad to interact with the app. And I can use my Mac keyboard too, like to add special instructions.
Not only does it display your iPhone in real time and let you navigate with your keyboard and mouse, but you can interact with it and drag things back and forth between your phone and your Mac. Notifications will merge with your Mac as well, so you can see and access apps you may not have been able to before, which is pretty cool as well. So finally, Apple announced their version of AI, which has a new acronym, Apple Intelligence. Now, first of all, they're not only supporting it on, older devices. It's going to be available on anything with an M chip or more, and the iPhone 15 Pro and later. So we're going to be looking out for an iPhone 16 because that'll definitely carry it. Intelligence features a set of tools throughout the entire operating system. Writing tools are now available to summarize, rewrite, change the writing style, or even proofread things. Photos has a cleanup mode, so you can remove things from the background of photos. You can generate your own emojis if there's one that doesn't exist and you want to create one. It'll let you generate a lot of really cool things on the fly as well. A new image playground is there to let you create images with AI. Just type in what you want to see and it'll actually give it to you in 3 potential styles: animation, illustration, and sketch. And of course, Siri is going to get a little bit more useful, or hopefully a lot more useful. She'll be able to understand context and be able to take actions in apps like calling you an Uber, rescheduling meetings if your location is too far away, and so much more. Here's Apple's Kelsey Peterson.
Thanks to richer language understanding capabilities, even if I stumble over my words, Siri understands what I'm getting at. What does the weather look like for tomorrow at Muir Beach? Oh wait, I meant Muir Woods.
The forecast is calling for clear skies in the morning near Muir Woods National Monument.
Sometimes it takes me a beat to figure out what I actually want to ask Siri, and now it follows right along. Siri also maintains conversational context, so I can follow up and say, create an event for a hike there tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Hike is scheduled for 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on June 11th.
I didn't have to mention Muir Woods again. Siri understood what I meant when I said there.
So cool. Siri can also work across apps like adding contacts, getting directions, I guess, and rescheduling appointments based on your location and even traffic. And you can even type to Siri when maybe talking to her might not be the best thing in the world. There are updates in the Notes app, including summaries and transcriptions, and phone calls can be recorded and even summarized. Email lists can show summaries instead of just a couple lines of the first email. Lots to dissect as we dig in deeper, and of course, where does OpenAI fit into this? Well, there's something that Apple thinks, ChatGPT might be better to do. When it does think it might be better for ChatGPT to do it, it'll ask you for permission, of course, privacy is front of line there, and it'll say, do we send this to ChatGPT? So for privacy purposes, almost everything is encrypted on the device, and when it needs to do more, it'll say, should we do it? And it'll actually do it. So lots going on. Developers already have access to most of these updates, with the exception of Apple Intelligence, which will be available to developers later in the summer, Stephen. I know you're looking forward to getting hands-on. I'm looking forward to getting hands-on, and we will all go into it a lot deeper once we actually get our hands-on.
Is that it? Is that all you've got?
No, there's more. We'll talk about more later. Trust me, I've got more. I just don't have the time for it, unfortunately. So it's okay. It's okay. We'll get to it.
It's been quite a week, hasn't it? I mean, this is a huge event, of course, and every year it's a huge event. This year, made even bigger. Like you say, we're going to dive into this in a big way, but of course we have our question of the week to get to. We must find out what people think of this one. I love this question. I have my answer because I checked just before I came on. What is in your Amazon shopping basket right now? So go to your Amazon shopping basket right now. Tell us in the comments on YouTube, get in touch with us in the usual way, and tell us what is in that. What's on the top? Because you might have a few things in there. You might even have a few things saved for later. Whatever at the top of the list is, let us know.
Yeah, and of course, at Access Tech Live on all our social media, and you can email us as well, feedback@accesstechlive.com. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Coming up, Dave Brown and Jennie Bovard will be right next to me on either side, talking about International Albinism Awareness Day, and later, the company that's bringing ASL to the NHL Stanley Cup Final, and of course, more WWDC coverage after a break here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. This is Access Tech Live.
Now, this is Access Tech Live. Now, Mark, you are in Halifax. Now, here in the UK, that is known as a bank, but I believe in Canada it's known as a city. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, it's a city in Nova Scotia. It's on the eastern side of Canada. You didn't hit this on your trip across Canada? I'm surprised, Stephen.
No.
Don't most people just come to Halifax and make their way across country?
Well, maybe they do. I didn't, because I went to Toronto, which I believe is a favoured part of Canada.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm just trying to get in with Dave Brown there, you see.
Okay, well, fine. You know what, Stephen? Right next to me, on either side of me, to my left is Jennie Bovard, the host of Low Vision Moments. She's actually the reason we're in Halifax, because she lives here. And instead of bringing her somewhere, we said, let's bring the whole party to her. Jennie, thanks for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for bringing the party.
And on the other side of me, Stephen, is Dave Brown. You may know him from the host of Now with Dave Brown, of course, on AMI this morning. You had fun this morning, Dave?
Always have a fun time hanging out with you guys.
Okay, now I need you to help me here, okay? We're here for International Albinism Awareness Day. Tell me about the significance of this day. Either of you can fight to start.
You go first, Dave.
Okay, there we go.
What I've been grappling with is trying to figure out where my experience blends itself with the international experience. Albinism comes with a lot of the typical stigmas and barriers that a person with a disability is going to face in the North American context, but the global picture is a different one. It's a significant human rights story about violence that people with albinism face around the world, abandonment, killing of children, mutilation. This is an understanding of celebrating our own experiences, but raising awareness about what people like us are experiencing elsewhere in the world.
Jennie, same feeling to you?
I totally agree with Dave, but I think for me, it's a bit more of like, now I have a bit of a platform or two where I feel like I can participate in Albinism Awareness Day like I couldn't before. Before, my perception of the day was very much like, the people who are out there doing the work, who are changing policy and changing laws to protect those folks who need protection from violence in other places other than Canada primarily. I didn't feel like I had a place really with Albinism Awareness Day until recently. So now I feel like I can be more involved, and having these conversations I think is really meaningful.
I want to tell you guys a quick story, because this weekend I was at a gathering for a friend's birthday, and of course people saying, when's your next trip? You know, because I tend to travel a lot. And I said, I'm going to Halifax. And they go, oh, well, what's in Halifax? I said, well, we're going to do some broadcasts for International Albinism Awareness Day. And believe it or not, and I'm always surprised by this, but people say, albinism, what's that? And I went into details, and they realized, of course, they know what albinism is. But how would you describe albinism to someone who isn't aware?
I like to describe it as a genetic difference, and I tend to get into the details. Like, it's a genetic difference. We are born with this condition, and it does come with, as Dave said, it comes with often disability, it comes with a visual impairment or legal blindness, and it does come with, unfortunately, some barriers in everyday life when it comes to accessing employment, really just accessing the world around us, right? And that's obviously where technology comes in and plays a big part as well.
Stephen?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Jennie, because I wanted to pick up on that. I mean, one of the commonalities, it would appear to me anyway, of albinism is low vision. I had many friends at school who had albinism, and of course they were with us in the visual impairment unit in school. And we never really talked about the albinism, we talked about the vision. How does tech help you guys as a result? And I put that to both of you.
It's an interesting question, because tech has evolved so much in my life that a lot of the solutions that were more high-tech that were presented to me in my youth, like a CCTV to blow up font or read more efficiently, I just never liked, because they were clunky and unruly and non-portable. So, Stephen, I was making a lot of choices early in my life, all the way into my early adult life, where I was using things like a magnifying glass or a telescope as my primary coping devices or my primary accessibility devices. But since the advent of the smartphone, I find that I'm using that as my primary accessibility device because it serves as a telescope with the camera function. It serves as a magnifying glass with zoom function. For whatever reason, the cell phone the smartphone specifically has been one of the ultimate accessibility devices that was not thought of as such as it was being created.
Yeah, absolutely.
My experience
Jennie?
is very much the same as Dave. Yeah, very, very similar experience growing up. I rejected all of the technology, all of the magnification, and I could have been a much more efficient and probably overall better student if I had embraced those things. But like Dave, up until the advent of the smartphone and GPS and your Google Maps, I was using MapQuest to get around.
Oh my God.
And I love that it's just a much more seamless experience now. Everyone's got a smartphone. It's not a big device that you need to carry around. Another thing for me that I love, and I'm a little underwhelming when you ask me about tech most of the time, guys. I'm a little basic, but I just love my Apple Watch because it's that seamlessness. Until I got it, I had never been able to glance at my watch and check the time. And I didn't feel disabled enough or blind enough to use the talking watch where you need to press the button. And that's a me thing. That's not an actual thing. But to be able to do that in a natural way is a big deal for me. I've never been able to see a watch outside with such clarity. And to be able to check the UV index just by asking Siri on my watch, I don't need to take out another device. It's the seamlessness for me. The Apple Watch does a lot. It's my fitness tracker. It's kind of like it's a really big leg up.
Is there something that you think technology could help even further for you guys right now? Like, obviously, you know, the smartphone comes out, like, oh my God, we can use it, as you said, for the magnifier. We can use it instead of the telescope. Is there something your mind is going now and saying, oh, light bulb moment, oh, maybe technology could do this and make my life easier?
Well, Mark, I'm going to give you a little bit of guff here. You promised me at some point during this trip you were going to let me play with your Ray-Ban Meta glasses because I'm really interested by the idea of cameras being subtly embedded in glasses so it's not a gargantuan clunky device. It's something that looks a little bit more discreet and fashionable, but the way that those glasses are going to be integrated with various services that are designed to help people from the blind and low vision community, I think that is the pure accessibility connection. But for me, I can even see the functionality of looking for a street sign and using the glasses to snap the picture, not having to pull out the phone. It goes back to what Jennie said, limit the amount of devices I need to schlep around with me. So I find the idea of those glasses, if you ever let me play with them, to be quite fascinating.
Look at that. He's like razzing me. They're back there, I swear. I'll let you. Jennie, what about you? Anything?
The schlepping is real. I agree wholeheartedly with what Dave has said. And another thing that I really love is that dark mode is picking up steam.
Oh, yeah.
It's on Apple devices. It's on your word processors. It's Google. It's everywhere. And I love dark mode. With albinism, a lot of us struggle with light sensitivity, and it's pretty extreme. And so I love dark mode everything, more dark mode. Also, the less light we need to let the cameras see us really well, that's I don't know how to articulate that well, but...
No, you did that pretty well. We were setting up for your show, which is coming up later on.
The more sensitive the cameras can be to light,
the better for you.
That's good for me.
You know, I bluffed I made a little bit of a mistake. I was working on technical stuff for your show that we're doing this evening, and I was in the document. I think you might have been. We were sharing a document, and I was changing the dark mode.
That was
and then it was me. And I realized then it switched back. I'm like, oh my, what am I doing? Of course, Jennie's doing this for a reason. It's not just a. But okay, before I let you guys go, because I know we got a lot of preparation for stuff going on tonight, and if you want to follow all of it, it's on AMI TV. It's simulcast right now on AMI Audio. You can find that. By the way, Double Tap is coming on at 1. Don't worry. Tell us what to expect tonight, because you're talking about global reach. You got a lot of really cool people coming up.
I'm really pumped for tonight. I'm so amped. We have a live band, of course, the band behind the Low Vision Moments theme song. We've got people from all over the world representing different experiences with albinism, and that's really what it's all about, as well as showcasing all the awesome stuff that they're doing in entertainment, in human rights, and really every aspect of life.
So that's coming up. My time zones are all messed up. 4 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. whatever time zone we're in right now.
You got it, yes.
It's very confusing. My computer didn't update. My phone didn't update. Everybody offset is like, come on, you're ignoring us. Thank you for taking the time to join me now. Dave, thank you for being here. And you're going to both be here all day. So you tune in, of course, later on YouTube, where Low Vision Moments will be streaming, of course, AMI audio. And we're going to take a quick break here on Access Tech Live because coming up, as I said, the National Hockey League is making some pretty cool history. The current Stanley Cup Final is being broadcast in American Sign Language. But how did it come to be? We'll find out from the guy behind the play-by-play after this.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live.
Now, back on the show. Now, Mark, I don't know a lot about the NHL because I'm not the most sportiest guy. I think that's years of being a nerd has had a big part to play in that. But what I do know is that it's ice hockey. So how does that tie into tech?
Well, there's a lot of ways that ice hockey ties into tech. Actually, there's so much tech that goes involved into putting on these games, whether it be the advertising, the in-game, all that fun stuff. But this year in particular, there's a really, really cool thing going on. The National Hockey League, together with PXP, are producing the first of its kind alternate broadcast of the Stanley Cup Final in American Sign Language, or ASL as people might call it, for the deaf and hard of hearing fans. Now, Bryce Christensen is the founder and CEO of PXP, and he joins us now. Bryce, thank you for taking the time to join us. What an amazing thing you guys are doing. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for spreading more awareness, and really honored to be here.
Yeah, and this is the show that talks about it, right? We tie technology into accessibility and into disability. We bring it all together. So, Bryce, great to have you here. Tell us about PXP and why your company was founded.
So, Jason Altman, who is the Chief Operating Officer for PXP and is also the first ever deaf broadcaster in professional sports as well. Him and I grew up together. His parents are deaf. My parents are deaf. We've known each other for more than 35 years. And we've loved playing sports growing up. But that's really the backbone of PXP. We just have a strong tie to the deaf community growing up in it. And when I was growing up, I've always had a very difficult relationship with my father, unfortunately. He was born in a time where American Sign Language was not recognized or celebrated. He was abused for trying to use sign language. He was forced to speak when he had no residual hearing at all. And instead of celebrating the uniqueness of humanity, he was tormented and embarrassed by the fact that he was deaf. So growing up, I saw a father who was not comfortable in his own skin and often would take it out on me. And so our struggles really sort of dissolved because of sports. We connected. I got to understand him a little bit more through professional sports. And that really is the idea behind PXP. Little did I know that being born to deaf parents, American Sign Language being my first language, this sort of turmoil with my father would actually end up turning into such a positive impact within the deaf community. But that's where it all originated.
Well, I'm glad it did, because we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this right now. And of course, I'm curious about how it came to be, because who reached out to who? Did you reach out to the NHL? Did they reach out to you? Because the NHL relationship is not the first of its kind that you're doing. You do other events as well. So how did this come to be?
It's been a very long and arduous process getting into professional sports and also creating a business. I don't have an MBA, so becoming an entrepreneur is something that I'm still learning, and that's probably a great mindset to have, to always iterate and see what works and try to incrementally improve over time. But where it started was actually, again, with Jason. We're both huge Green Bay Packer fans, and in my free time, I wanted to talk about the Packers more. So I created a Green Bay Packers podcast back in 2017. And Jason was the first to say, hey, why don't you incorporate American Sign Language into it? And so I started providing ASL commentary along with the spoken English version of our podcast. And that was really the idea. And I started flashing back to my time with my father growing up and having him ask me what was being said during interviews or during games. And so it all kind of came together. But then it took a few years to get my foot in the door with professional sports. It took a few years just to get a meeting. And just because you get a meeting doesn't mean that there's a yes. So it's been a really long process. And with that, I proposed to the Milwaukee Bucks in 2019. They became the first professional sports team to have a sign language interpreter. I interpreted Coach Budenholzer and Giannis's press conferences. And then the pandemic had other things in mind. And so in 2021, because of my work with the Bucks, I was connected to the NHL and developed a relationship over time, but it's incrementally improved over time. So the first time was 2022, where I interpreted the commissioner's address for Commissioner Gary Bettman at the Stanley Cup Final prior to Game 1 against the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then over time, I have nothing but respect. I absolutely adore everyone that I work with at the NHL. Everything that we're doing is made possible because of the NHL and also their trust and belief in myself and Jason and PXP. But it's just been a process over time. I think the big thing that has changed is that the NHL listens. They want to learn. They want to be inclusive. They want to be accessible. And that's such a great partnership to have. And it's also unique in professional sports.
There's so much detail and action in hockey, and it moves so quickly. So, how do you approach this? How do you approach bringing sign language to this game?
I think a healthy mindset is realizing that there is no blueprint. It's never been done before, and realizing that you can't please everyone, and knowing that we're going to give our best. We're going to do our best and try to create more representation in professional sports. I think the big thing that what we're doing is that deaf and hard of hearing kids or other deaf individuals that have not been welcomed before, that have been excluded in the past, are being validated. And having deaf broadcasters on screen, it shows that it doesn't overcomplicate things. And I think that with sports teams and leagues outside of the NHL, the thing that I've noticed the most is that a lot of times it's performative. That's another unique thing about the NHL, is that this is authentic. From top to bottom, this is authentic. They care, and it allows us to do great work too. I know the common phrase is, why not captions? And what you're telling deaf people is to read captions in their second language, and then they're also missing the game. So with this NHL and ASL, I know a lot of people are saying, how is it that people are supposed to watch sign language and then the game? I think a lot of people are underestimating what deaf people are capable of. And what they're doing is that they're able to they get to pick and choose. Do we get to watch the broadcasters or watch the game, or a little bit of both? So that's the exciting thing, is deaf representation. It's changing lives. We're also preserving language. There's been constant attacks over American Sign Language and curing deaf people and fixing deaf people, rather than celebrating this cultural and linguistic minority that has a rich and vibrant history. So we're just scratching the surface, but we're very excited about what's happening right now.
So now that you've got your first couple games under the belt, can you, number one, tell me what the feedback has been, but can you also describe a little bit about the visuals on the screen? Because we just played a little bit of B-roll here, and you've got this audience reaction meter, but you're taking advantage of technology in a very unique way about delivering something that is more than just even the sign language experience. You're seeing, the audience reaction, crowd cheering, et cetera, et cetera.
That is all Matt Selly, Ray Jacobs, and Rachel Siegel of the NHL and their production staff. Again, this has taken a lot of time. This wasn't something that we just thought of after dinner and drinks on a bar napkin. This is something that took a lot of time and energy. I give a lot of credit to the NHL for believing in this, wanting to do this. And over the past several months, we've been meeting regularly to try to have this come, or to try to bring this into fruition. But they've also taken back our feedback to make it more enjoyable and entertaining to watch. But that's all the NHL production crew and how they've done it. The feedback has been incredible. You're always apprehensive about trying something new and wondering what the feedback was. And in terms of, I just lost what your first question was. I'm sorry.
It was really just about the feedback from the audience, feedback of actually experiencing the broadcast in ASL.
Oh, my apologies. The feedback has just been overwhelmingly positive. I think that's something that we're always wondering about. Like, you can't please everyone, but the thing that we've been really appreciative of is that we've had a bunch of deaf kids that have reached out to the NHL saying that I'm seeing American Sign Language on TV before. Something that I wanted to mention, that actually that's the reason why I lost my train of thought, was that technology has always been a blessing and a curse, and I think what's so amazing with technology is that we're allowing advancements in accessibility, inclusion, and representation because of technology. That's not something that I had growing up. That's not something that Jason had growing up. That's not something that my parents had growing up. So that's another reason why I think is so exciting, is that we're capitalizing on technology to create more accessibility and inclusion.
I am always championing any inclusion at all, and anyone from the disability community that can be included. That is good, and it should be there. It should always be there. And we'll talk a bit more about that, possibly ASL being there by default in a minute. But I want to ask you a little bit of a question, maybe a little bit personal to me, and I feel it's important to bring this up. What about blind viewers of NHL? Described video is something, of course, which is incredibly important to me, to watch any film, to watch any TV show. Is that something that's in discussion for the NHL coverage as well?
That's a great question. I know that the NHL believes in accessibility and inclusion and representation, also diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our focus is the deaf and hard of hearing community, but that doesn't mean that we're not allies for other marginalized communities within the disability community. My hope is that professional sports teams see what we're doing and start to get more innovative, that more access equals more fans. So to your point, I think it's not only is it innovative, it's great business, but also it's for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear on this. I'm asking that purely because I think it's important to mention. I do not want to take away from the fact that great work here is being done for the deaf community. So let's absolutely make that clear. Now, I mentioned earlier about ASL being there by default. Is that something that you think will happen? Do you hope that is what will happen for all future games and also other sports?
Yeah, ideally. I mean, that's the creation of PXP, is really to provide more accessibility, inclusion, and representation in professional sports. Like I said, it has been a long, daunting journey, and this has been so refreshing and validating that we are on the right track. We've gotten a lot of no's, we've gotten nothing before, and what the NHL has shown is that they believe in this and they care about this, and that we also execute to the best of our ability. So we take this very seriously. We're focused on Game 3 tonight and the rest of the Stanley Cup Final. Excited to see what's in store moving forward, though.
Yeah, the NHL always delivers an incredible experience, and this is just adding to that repertoire. So thank you for joining us. Good luck with Game 3 tonight in Edmonton. We look forward to the path that this is going, and we look forward to having you on again, Bryce. This is a great story that you have created, and a great to have you on.
Thank you for having me and for sharing my story, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Thanks,
when
Bryce.
we return here on Access Tech Live, AI, did I say it enough? We dive into some of our favorite announcements from WWDC, and not all of it happened on stage during the presentation. Stick around.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Back to Access Tech Live.
And yes, we are here on Access Tech Live. Now, every year, Apple showcases the future of all of its various operating systems and software. And this year, of course, was no different. But with one big exception, and that is AI. Now, I have to start with the name, Mark, because AI...
Of course you do.
Look, you know, it's not artificial intelligence when it comes to Apple anymore.
No,
it is
no,
Apple intelligence. I think that is actually quite genius, to be perfectly honest. I love it.
They've got a crack marketing team there, Stephen. Like they do. I mean, honestly, quite honestly, that wouldn't even have crossed my mind. But then I heard it, and I'm like, of course they did. Why didn't they do it? Now, there's so much that happens on stage at these events, and yes, it was almost 2 hours. But there's a lot that happens afterwards. They break out into sessions. There are accessibility sessions, obviously AI sessions. There's awardees that are there, which we're going to be talking to in a couple of weeks. But I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that stood out to me that they might have glossed over. And one of them, to be perfectly honest, was messages via satellite. So this means that on newer devices that have that satellite connection, that SOS feature, which was available like on the Apple Watch before, will be able to actually send iMessages and text messages without cell phone reception. So if you're trapped in a canyon somewhere, or maybe across Canada when you're on your next trip, you'll actually be able to text people and say, help. I found that cool because I'm really kind of curious how that works, especially since we don't have to pay for it.
Well, we don't have to pay for it yet. I'm not entirely convinced that'll be the case forever, although who knows, right? But it is interesting you mention that, because when I was traveling through Canada, I was getting that little satellite symbol on my phone a lot. And I was kind of wondering, okay, so, you know, at least I can call someone. And funnily enough, one of the things I thought was, it's so cool if I could just send a text. Can I do that? And of course, you can't. So, you know, that is something that's coming. I think that is absolutely fantastic. Do you know, I've got to say, I mean, all the things they talked about on stage, there was one thing that really stood out to me. And it's such a tiny thing. But as a blind guy, when I pick up my phone, I am often turning on my torch by accident a lot of the time, because the torch icon's in the bottom right of the screen. And sometimes when you touch the screen, especially even with voiceover on, you can accidentally turn on the torch. So your torch is on for hours and hours on end, it's draining your battery. Now you can swap that round, you can even change those buttons to be something else. And customization, of course, was really the theme of all of that. You could even change the icons in dark mode. Yeah. Jennie was talking earlier about the joy of dark mode, being able to tint the icons. You know, you could have, for example, the yellow icons, all the icons become yellow on a dark black background, something that could be really useful to people with low vision.
Let me translate a bit. Torch equals flashlight. Reminders and calendar is something that I've been yearning for a while. It allows you to set reminders with due dates, and it'll appear in your calendar. I actually use my calendar as my to-do list, right? So to be able to throw reminders in there and have them come up at the same time is pretty cool. You know, for instance, if you set a reminder on a specific day and time, the actual calendar event will appear there on that actual day, which is pretty cool. There was something called camera beam. You can slide your finger left and right to adjust the actual shape of that flashlight, by the way. You can actually, if you want to make it wider. Okay, so, you know, you have your flashlight on or your torch on. It's normally just bright. The whole area is bright. But if you want to focus that beam down to a more, it's like almost like in lighting in show business. You focus the spotlight on something. You'll be able to do that with your flashlight as well. So if you're trying to find a rat or something in the corner, really bad example, I know. You'll be able to. Is that something
that's is that software based, or is that something that's physically
both? It's software and hardware. It's physically doing something on the light. It's actually focusing the light in some way, shape, or form. Again, things that we're going to dive deeper into. The other one that I saw was seeing voicemail transcriptions right in your notification. So instead of just seeing voicemail from Stephen Scott, it can show voicemail from Stephen Scott with an actual summary of what you might have said, and the same thing will happen in mail as well. The other one, you know, especially here in Canada, I live in Quebec, right? Bilingual people will know this. When you're trying to, you know, chat with somebody in English and French and change languages, it's been difficult because your keyboard's set to one mode now. Well, thanks to the intelligence features of the machine learning, it's going to detect it so you can type back and forth and not worry about autocorrect along the way. So, I mean, these are all little things that make a big difference. There's some visual stuff, Stephen, like when you touch the buttons on the side of the screen, your actual black bar of the screen, the outline, the bezel will actually kind of bump into the phone. Little animations like that. I mean, I know accessibility-wise, a lot of that stuff was talked about during Global Accessibility Awareness Day, but I'm sure that if we dig deeper into this WWDC, they always have accessibility breakouts afterwards. Have you heard anything on that line?
Well, listen, I want to just touch on this because one of the things that a lot of people talk to me about are the visuals, you know, and they say, oh, you won't really be able to benefit from that. Increasing the size of the icons, for example, on the home screen, making them large, great for low vision people, but, you know, would I be able to do that? Well, you know, we got the iOS 18 beta, we tried it out, and yes, it's all accessible. Even with a screen reader, it is fully accessible because all of these actions that we do, all of the little detail, the little minutiae of detail is all available through even a screen reader. I think the attention to detail that Apple puts into even mainstream features to make them accessible to us is brilliant because, of course, there are blind people out there like me who are the tech support in the family, who are helping the others. For me to be able to pick up someone else's phone, turn on a screen reader and use their device, set their device up the way they want. For my mum, for example, who really struggles with, you know, touching the screen and hitting the right point of the screen, you know, being able to make the icons larger, that's great for her, but I can now set that up for her. And I just think that's wonderful. So yeah, there's tons of accessibility features. We'll dig into all of that, of course, over the next few weeks. We're going to get hands-on, try all this stuff out. But I think it's the fact that they really put the attention to detail into making the mainstream stuff even accessible, even if I can't necessarily benefit from it myself.
The other thing I wanted to mention is, you know, there's integration with ChatGPT, as we talked about, and OpenAI, but not exclusive. Like they made it very clear in a lot of post-discussion conversations that they're going to be opening it up to other language models down the road. You'll be able to use the Google Geminis of the world and the various companies out there. So it's not like this whole Google exclusive relationship that they had with search for the first several years of the iPhone. So I think that's interesting too, because they don't normally open up core operating system features to other companies. But in this particular aspect, they are going to be doing it, which I find is a little bit non-Apple-like.
Very not Apple-like, but it's kind of almost, it seems to me more of an interface thing. So it's more about finding an easy way to get access to OpenAI or Google Gemini. I think what I took away from this event was, and in some ways I thought that the presentations around the new Siri, the new voice assistant, the new Apple Intelligence, was a little bit boring in some ways. It felt a little bit mundane, considering what we've seen over the last 18 months, the capability of OpenAI with GPT 4.0, which is coming. You know, I see so much great innovation coming. But, you know, I felt with Apple Intelligence, this feels a little bit tame. However, what they're doing is they're creating what I would say is useful artificial intelligence, stuff we will actually use every day. And I think that is the difference. And they're going to build this up over time. They are not going to do this the way that OpenAI are running. They're not going to go at that speed. But they're going to get there. And what they're doing is filling in the gaps with these other AIs, and more importantly, making it private. You know, this is super locked down. You know, if you've got your data on your device, you know it's not going anywhere else. I actually believe Apple when they say that privacy is at the core of what they do. I do believe that. I've no reason not to.
It is true. No, it is true, Stephen. There definitely, and they made I mean, listen, they talked about privacy before they dove into the features, which I think is super important. Answer those questions before people even have a chance to ask them. But we're going to be digging into this. Apple Intelligence itself is not available in beta yet until they say late in the summer. I did reach out to Apple to talk to them about them. We're going to be talking to some cool developers because I'm really curious to see how they give developers access to all this as well. But Stephen, coming up after a quick break, what is in your Amazon basket right now? Everybody here, check your Amazon basket. I want to know what's in there. We'll get to that after a quick break here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. This is Access Tech Live.
So our question of the week is, what is in your Amazon shopping basket right now? I don't know why I'm so excited by this question.
Because people are scared. People are scared, Stephen. People are, Stacy back in our control room said, you don't want to know. And that makes me even more curious what's in her shopping basket. So Stacy, we'll be talking about for the show, okay? We'll get to that.
I have to find out.
You have one from Craig, right? Someone wrote in to you, and we don't have this on our list here. A KFC branded cane and what?
And a kitchen carpet.
A kitchen carpet. I don't know if I'd want to put a carpet in my kitchen. I'm kind of worried about that.
That's a good idea, Craig.
No, but thank you, Craig. I mean, he reached out at Access Tech Live on our social media. Ronnie also reached out and said, Lego, light kit for a Lego, a scraper, shampoo, conditioner. There's more, she says, including a stop-motion Nintendo Splatoon at $400-ish, and a steam cleaner, grout cleaner brush, and cleaner makeup. That's extremely
the one
specific.
thing. That's a lot in there. That was only meant to be one thing.
Maybe it's a package, like maybe people have a package deal. I'm not really sure about how that works. Tara writes a self-inking heart stamp, and she puts a little heart emoji next to that. Thank you, Tara.
Yes,
that was so nice. Brett, household stuff. Do you want me to share my wish list? Oh, I get it. He wants to know if we're buying stuff for people. I got a lot of that. No. People saying, "Oh, what are you shopping for me?" No, we're not shopping for you. And Joanna writes, fishing rods, sleeping bags, marshmallows, and bug spray. We're going camping. I would hope you're going camping because I'd hate to know what on earth you're using that stuff for otherwise. Stephen, what's in your shopping basket right now?
Can you guess? Did you work it out?
Can I work it out?
Something I consume every single day and I need.
KFC. Something you consume every day and you need?
Yeah, okay, well, it's not KFC. Let's just say I would maybe drink with KFC.
Iron Brew?
No, not Iron Brew, no. Coffee. Come on,
coffee. Of course. What coffee pods for your Keurig? Oh, exactly. Your Tassimo machine. Oh, that's fun. Stephen, I want to mention that you did a very, very cool episode of Double Tap, the podcast, on YouTube as well a couple days ago, wrapping up the WWDC, of course, from the low vision blindness perspective. A great episode. You do want to check it out at Double Tap online on YouTube. Very, very cool episode. And we're actually preempting your own show right now on AMI Audio because we're simulcasting this in every show from Halifax on AMI Audio. So if you're looking for Double Tap, hi, welcome to Access Tech Live. But Stephen is coming up with Sean. And what else is going on today on Double Tap after this show on AMI Audio?
Well, we're talking audio today. We're talking about the Mac, and Logic Pro is a wonderful piece of audio editing software. We're going to be digging into that because it's a big update, which is making the difference to one of our listeners. He's joining us to talk about that, and of course, more WWDC talk.
Well, I'm going to give you a quick preview of what's to come in the next coming weeks. We're going to be talking to Jason Bromett from Microsoft, all about Copilot and some of the Surface hardware. We're going to be talking to an Apple Swift Award winner, a Canadian girl who created an app to help aging in place. That's going to be really cool as well. But coming up today on AMI Audio, you'll be able to hear a special edition of Low Vision Moments, which you can find on the AMI YouTube channel. Check it out on YouTube. Just look up Low Vision Moments. You'll find that. And Jennie, Bovard, and Dave Brown will be back from this stage. It'll look a little bit different, but it's coming up today. So thank you to everybody. Stephen, thank you for not being here. I wish you were here, but it was nice to have a companion on the outside world. And everybody in the studio who I'm looking at who's making all this stuff possible. Too many names to name. And of course, everybody back in the control room in Toronto. Thank you for being here this week and every week on Access Tech Live. Lots of fun stuff coming up. So do stick around, and thank you for being with us this week.
Thanks for tuning in to Access Tech Live. Follow us online on all social media at Access Tech Live. Email us feedback@accesstechlive.com. Hosted by Stephen Scott in Glasgow and Mark Aflalo in Montreal. Live show director, Anastasia Spalding-Stenhouse. Technical director, Caitlin Robinson. Audio, Jordan Mulgrave. Live graphics and playback, James Kennedy. Graphics coordinator, Eliza Rocco. Integrated described video specialist, M. Williams. Supervising producer, Michelle Dudas. Produced in collaboration with Aflalo Communications Inc. and Double Tap Productions. Copyright 2024, Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.
Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes.